A Werewolf Shifter Romance, written by Elara Voss. Chapter 1. Shadows of Authority. What happens when an alpha, used to power, finally sees the wreckage of his own neglect? This isn't just a story of regret, but a seismic shift where an entire world changes. Discover how one alpha's awakening ushers in a powerful reign, not just for himself, but for those he once overlooked. The moon hung low over the jagged peaks of the Silverridge Mountains, casting a silvery glow on the sprawling territory of the Eclipse Pack. Alpha Luca Stormfang stood at the edge of his cliff-top den, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the night sky. At 28, he was the epitome of werewolf strength, tall, muscular, with piercing green eyes that commanded obedience and dark hair that fell in unruly waves to his color. His pack revered him as the unyielding leader who had expanded their borders, forged alliances with rival clans, and amassed wealth from the fertile lands they now controlled. Victories in battles against rogue shifters and human encroachers had solidified his reign. Yet, as the cool wind whispered through the pines, Luca felt an unfamiliar hollowness gnawing at his core, like a shadow creeping into his soul. He shook it off, attributing it to the fatigue of another long day. The pack's annual council meeting had just concluded in the grand hall below, where elders and betas had praised his strategies. "Alpha Luca, your vision has made us unbreakable," Elder Ahmet had declared, his voice booming with loyalty. The others, Ames, his steadfast beta, Bruce, the grizzled warrior, and Hunter, the cunning scout, had nodded in agreement, their eyes gleaming with the pride of wolves under a strong leader. But Luca noticed something off in their postures, a subtle tension that hadn't been there before. Ames had averted his gaze when Luca dismissed a concern about overworking the younger shifters, and Bruce's laugh had sounded forced during the feast. Descending the stone steps carved into the cliffside, Luca made his way to the heart of the pack's compound, a cluster of timber lodges nestled in a protected valley. The air was thick with the scents of pine resin, cooked venison, and the musky undertones of his kin. Pups played under the watchful eyes of their mothers, shifting between human and wolf forms in gleeful bursts. It should have filled him with satisfaction, this thriving community he had built. Instead, the emptiness persisted, a quiet ache that made his wolf restless beneath his skin. In the central lodge, Luca found his fated mate, Miki, tending to the hearth. She was a vision of quiet grace, 22 years old, with cascading auburn hair that caught the firelight, and warm brown eyes that once sparkled with adoration for him. They had been bonded for 3 years, a union sealed under the full moon in a ceremony that promised eternal unity. Miki was the pack's healer, her gentle touch mending wounds and soothing spirits. But lately, her smiles seemed dimmer, her touches fleeting.
"Luca," she said softly, rising to greet him. Her voice carried a hint of weariness, though she masked it with a practiced warmth. "The meeting went well. I heard the cheers from here." He pulled her into his arms, inhaling her familiar scent of lavender and wildflowers. For a moment, the emptiness receded. "As always, our borders are secure and the alliances hold. We'll be ready for the winter hunts." Miki nodded, but her body didn't melt against his as it once did. She stepped back, busying herself with stirring a pot of stew. "That's good. The pack needs that strength." There was a pause, heavy with unspoken words. Luca sensed it, the subtle sign of discontent he had been ignoring. Her eyes, when they met his, held a flicker of something he couldn't quite name. Sadness? Resentment? "What's troubling you?" he asked, his alpha instincts kicking in. He reached for her hand, but she gently pulled away to fetch a bowl. "Nothing, really. Just tired. The pups have been rowdy, and Birdie mentioned some unrest among the Omegas. They're feeling overlooked in the training rotations." Luca frowned, his mind already shifting to logistics. Birdie, the spirited Omega with a sharp tongue and fiery red hair, was always stirring minor complaints. "I'll address it tomorrow. Ames can handle the rotations." Mickey's lips pressed into a thin line. "It's more than that, Luca. They feel unseen, like their voices don't matter beyond the hunts and patrols." He waved it off, the hollowness returning like a tide. "The pack is stronger than ever. Success demands sacrifice. They'll understand." But as he said it, doubt crept in. Later that night, as Mickey slept beside him, her breathing steady but distant, Luca lay awake. His wolf paced internally, urging him to confront the unease. Whispers from the pack echoed in his memory, subtle ones, like Ace, the young scout, hesitating before reporting a successful patrol, or Ahmed's quiet sigh when Luca prioritized expansion over a communal gathering. The next morning, the sun rose over a bustling pack. Luca oversaw training in the clearing, where wolves sparred in both forms, their growls and clashes a symphony of power. Bruce led the session, his massive frame demonstrating a takedown on Hunter, who rolled away with a grin. "Again!" Luca barked, his voice carrying authority. The pack responded instantly, but he caught Ames exchanging a glance with Birdie, who was on the sidelines mending gear. Her expression was one of quiet frustration, her hands pausing in their work. During a break, Luca approached Ames, his beta and closest friend since puphood. Ames was loyal to a fault, with sandy blonde hair and steady blue eyes that hid a depth of wisdom. "Speak plainly, brother. What's this undercurrent I'm sensing?" Ames hesitated, then met Luca's gaze. "The pack is thriving outwardly, Alpha, but inwardly, some feel the weight of your focus on conquest. Mickey, she's been quiet, hasn't she? And the Omegas whisper about neglected bonds, families stretched thin by endless patrols." Luca's jaw tightened. "Neglect? I've given everything to this pack. Protection, prosperity." "Yes," Ames interrupted gently, a rare boldness in his tone. "But what about the heart of it? The connections that make us more than just survivors? You're our alpha, but even you can't rule from a throne of isolation."
The words struck like a claw to the gut. Luca glanced around, seeing the gilded cage for the first time, the outward success masking the emotional voids. The pack's loyalty was there, but cracks were forming. And at the center was his own neglect, born of a drive to prove himself unbreakable after losing his parents to a rival attack years ago. As the day wore on, the subtle signs mounted. During the midday meal, conversations hushed when he approached, and Mickey's laughter with the others felt forced in his presence. That evening, alone on the cliff top again, Luca let the emptiness wash over him. His reign had been built on power, but at what cost? The whispers were growing louder, and for the first time he wondered if the true battle was within himself. The moon rose higher, illuminating the path ahead, a path toward change if he had the courage to take it. But shadows lingered, and the Alpha's journey was only beginning. Chapter 2: Whispers Among Wolves. The dawn light filtered through the canopy of ancient oaks, painting the Eclipse Pack's valley in hues of gold and amber. The air was crisp, carrying the promise of a new day. But beneath the surface, tensions simmered like a pot on the verge of boiling over.
Alpha Luca Stormfang rose early, as was his habit, his powerful frame moving with purposeful strides through the compound. His green eyes scanned the waking pack, noting the Omegas preparing the morning meal and the warriors sharpening their claws for the day's patrols. Outwardly, all seemed orderly, a testament to his ironclad rule. But the hollowness from the night before lingered, a shadow that refused to dissipate. Luca headed toward the training grounds, where Bruce was already barking orders at a group of young shifters. The grizzled warrior with his scarred arms and booming voice was a pillar of the pack's strength. "Form up. The Alpha expects perfection. Rogues don't wait for weakness," Bruce's words echoed, but Luca caught the subtle glance Bruce shot toward Hunter, who was lingering at the edge of the clearing. Hunter, lean and agile, with sharp features and a mane of tousled brown hair, nodded curtly, but his eyes held a flicker of reluctance. As Luca approached, the group straightened, their respect evident. "Alpha," Bruce greeted with a nod, wiping sweat from his brow. "These pups are shaping up, but Ace here nearly got pinned in the last drill. Needs more focus." Ace, the young scout with wide-eyed enthusiasm and a lanky build, flushed under the scrutiny. "I won't let it happen again, Alpha. Just, the patrols have been non-stop. My sister's pup is sick and—" "Excuses weaken the pack," Luca cut in, his voice firm but not unkind. It was his standard response, drilled into him from years of leadership. "Focus on your duty, Ace. The pack's survival comes first." He clapped the young wolf on the shoulder, intending encouragement, but Ace's shoulders slumped slightly as he turned away.
Luca moved on, but as he did, he overheard murmurs from the Omegas gathered near the fire pit. Birdie, the fiery Omega with her red hair tied back in a practical braid and freckles dusting her nose, was speaking in hushed tones to a small group. Her voice, usually bold, carried an edge of frustration. "It's all hunts and borders with him. When's the last time the Alpha sat with us for a story circle? My mate's been gone on patrol for weeks, and I'm left raising the pups alone. We're not just fodder for his conquests." One of the others, a soft-spoken female named Leela, nodded, her hands busy kneading dough. "And Miki, poor thing. She heals us all, but who heals her? I saw her last night, eyes red from crying. The Alpha's so wrapped up in his vision, he doesn't see what's right in front of him." Luca froze behind a lodge, his enhanced hearing picking up every word. His wolf growled internally, a mix of defensiveness and unease. Neglect? He provided for them, food, safety, territory. But the words stung, echoing Ames's warning from the day before. He stepped into view and the group fell silent, their eyes widening in surprise. "Birdie," Luca said, his tone measured, "speak your mind. If there's unrest, I need to know." Birdie straightened, her chin lifting defiantly, though respect tempered her fire. "Alpha, with all due, the pack's strong because of you, but strength isn't just in claws and territory. We're wolves, not machines. The rigid rules, the endless drills, the dismissed gatherings, they're costing us. Families are straining, bonds weakening. Even Elder Ahmed mentioned it in council, but you brushed it aside." Ahmed. Luca's mind flashed to the elder's side during the meeting. He had attributed it to age, not discontent. The rules keep us alive, but the words felt hollow even to him. "Maybe," Birdie conceded, "but at what price? Look at Ace. His family's suffering because he can't be there. And Miki, she's your mate, Alpha. When's the last time you truly listened to her?" The mention of Miki hit like a blow. Luca's thoughts raced to their shared den, to her distant touches and faded smiles. He had dismissed it as her healer's burden, not his own failings. Before he could respond, Hunter approached, his scout's instincts picking up the tension. "Alpha, there's word from the northern border. Rogues spotted again. We need to mobilize." Luca nodded, grateful for the distraction, but the murmurs lingered in his mind. As the day progressed, the internal conflicts revealed themselves in small, insidious ways. During the patrol briefing, Ames pulled Luca aside. "The whispers are growing, brother. Bruce is loyal, but even he's grumbling about the lack of rest. The pack admires your drive, but they're exhausted. Personal bonds are fraying, mates arguing, pups unattended. Your rigid rule has hidden costs." Luca's jaw clenched. "What would you have me do? Soften? We've thrived because of structure." "Thrive outwardly," Ames corrected gently. "Inwardly, we're cracking. Talk to Miki. She's the heart of this pack, and if she's hurting—" The beta's words trailed off as Miki herself appeared at the edge of the clearing, her auburn hair catching the sunlight. She carried a basket of herbs, her role as healer evident in the way pack members gravitated toward her for comfort. But Luca saw it now. The subtle weariness in her step, the way her warm brown eyes avoided his direct gaze. She approached a group of Omegas, including Birdie, who had reconvened after their earlier talk.
"Miki, you look tired," Birdie said, concern lacing her voice. "Is everything all right with the Alpha?" Miki hesitated, glancing toward Luca, who pretended not to overhear. "He's dedicated. The pack comes first, always." But her tone held a bittersweet note, and the group exchanged knowing looks. As evening fell, the pack gathered for the communal meal, a tradition Luca had maintained, though sparingly. Around the fire, stories were shared, but the energy felt forced. Ahmed, the wise elder with his silver-streaked beard and thoughtful eyes, cleared his throat during a lull. "In my youth, Alphas ruled with both fang and heart. Conquest is vital, but so is the weave of our bonds. Neglect those, and the pack unravels from within." The words hung in the air, met with nods from several, including Bruce, who added gruffly, I've fought for this pack my whole life, but lately it feels like we're just surviving, not living." Luca sat silently, the murmurs now a chorus he could no longer ignore. His rigid rule had built an empire, but at the expense of the personal relationships that sustained it. Miki sat beside him, her hand brushing his briefly, a gesture that once sparked fire, now felt like a plea. As the fire crackled, Luca realized the true cost: isolation in his own den, a mate drifting away, and a pack on the brink of quiet rebellion. That night, as the moon climbed high, Luca lay awake again. Miki's form curled away from him. The whispers among wolves were no longer subtle, they were a call to action. Change was brewing, and the Alpha would have to confront his neglect before it tore everything apart. Chapter 3. The Gilded Burden. The midday sun beat down on the Eclipse Pack's training grounds, turning the earth into a dusty arena where sweat and determination mingled in the air. Alpha Luca Stormfang watched from the shade of a towering oak, his arms crossed over his broad chest as he observed the warriors honing their skills. Bruce led the drills with his usual ferocity, his scarred muscles rippling as he demonstrated a swift shift from human to wolf form, pinning Hunter to the ground in a blur of fur and fangs. "That's how you dominate," Bruce growled, shifting back and offering a hand to his fallen comrade. The pack cheered, their voices a chorus of approval that should have bolstered Luca's pride. And it did, in a way. Luca reflected on the advantages of his traditional ways, the rigid structure that had forged this unbreakable unit. Since taking the Alpha mantle at 23, after his parents' tragic death in a rogue ambush, he had instilled discipline like iron chains. Patrols ran like clockwork, borders were impenetrable, and alliances with neighboring packs ensured trade flowed freely. The Eclipse Pack was prosperous. Their larders overflowed with game, their coffers with silver from human dealings, and their reputation struck fear into enemies. "This is what tradition builds," Luca muttered to himself, recalling how his father's lax approach had nearly cost them everything. Rigidity had saved them, kept them alive, thriving. It was the werewolf way: strength through hierarchy, survival through unyielding command.
Yet, as the cheers faded, Luca's gaze drifted to the sidelines, where the Omegas tended to the pups and prepared herbs for the healers. Birdie was there, her red hair a fiery beacon as she bandaged a young shifter's scraped knee. Her movements were efficient, but her expression, pinched and weary, mirrored the subtle discontent he had begun to notice everywhere. The emotional toll of his rule was becoming impossible to ignore, a gilded burden that glittered with success but weighed heavy on hearts. Luca's thoughts turned inward to the den he shared with Miki. Last night, after the communal meal, she had retired early, claiming fatigue from a long day of healing. But he had seen the unshed tears in her warm brown eyes, the way she flinched slightly when he reached for her. Their bond, once a blazing fire under the moon's gaze, now flickered like a dying ember. He had dismissed her pleas for more time together as sentimental weakness, prioritizing pack duties over personal moments. The Alpha must lead by example, he had told her months ago when she suggested a private hunt just for them. Now he wondered if that example was eroding the very foundation of their mate connection. Seeking solitude to grapple with these reflections, Luca wandered to the edge of the valley, where a crystal stream cut through the forest. He sat on a moss-covered rock, the water's babble a soothing counterpoint to his turbulent mind. The advantages of tradition replayed in his head, the pack's victories against the Shadow Claw rogues last winter, how his strict training had turned potential losses into triumphs. Pups like Ace were growing into capable scouts because of the relentless drills. Elder Ahmed often praised the stability Luca had brought, a far cry from the chaotic days under weaker leaders. But the costs, oh, the costs were mounting. Luca closed his eyes, letting memories flood him. Ames, his loyal beta, had confided yesterday about his own mate's growing frustration, long separations due to extended patrols leaving her to manage her den alone. We're wolves, Luca, not solitary hunters. The heart needs tending, or it withers. Bruce, ever the stoic warrior, had let slip during a sparring break that his pups barely knew him beyond stories of his battles. "They fear me more than love me," he had grunted, a rare vulnerability cracking his gruff exterior. And then there was Miki. Luca's chest tightened at the thought of her. As the pack's healer, she poured her soul into mending others, stitching wounds from training accidents, soothing fevers in the young, even mediating disputes with her gentle wisdom. But who mended her? He recalled a recent night when she had returned from tending to a birthing Omega, exhausted and covered in sweat. Instead of holding her, listening to her day's burdens, Luca had launched into a discussion of border strategies, assuming her silence meant agreement. Now he saw it for what it was: resignation. The emotional toll on his mate was profound. Her once vibrant spirit dimmed, her touches tentative, as if fearing rejection.
A rustle in the underbrush pulled Luca from his reverie. Miki emerged from the trees, her auburn hair loose and flowing like a river of autumn leaves. She carried a satchel of gathered herbs, but her steps faltered when she saw him. "Luca," she said, her voice soft but laced with surprise. "I didn't expect you here. The patrols—" "Forget the patrols for a moment," he interrupted, standing to face her. His green eyes searched hers, seeing the guarded walls she had built. "Miki, talk to me, truly." She hesitated, setting down her satchel. "What is there to say? You've built a strong pack. We're safe, prosperous. That's what matters, isn't it?" The words echoed his own justifications, but hearing them from her lips twisted like a knife. "Is it?" he pressed, stepping closer. The scent of lavender and wildflowers enveloped him, stirring his wolf's protective instincts. "Tell me the truth. Has my way hurt you?" Miki's eyes glistened, and she looked away toward the stream. "The traditions have given us much, Luca, but they've taken too. I heal the pack's bodies, but their spirits? The Omegas come to me with tears, mates absent, pups longing for play over drills. And us, when was the last time we shifted together under the stars, just for joy? Not for strategy, not for the pack, but for us." Luca reached out, his hand trembling slightly as he cupped her cheek. Her skin was warm, but she didn't lean into his touch as she once had. The emotional toll stared back at him in her eyes. Loneliness, neglect, the slow erosion of their bond. "I've been blind," he admitted, his voice rough with regret. "I thought strength meant rigidity, that tradition protected us. But it's a gilded cage, isn't it? Beautiful from afar, but suffocating within." Miki nodded, a single tear escaping. "It is. The pack admires you, but they need more than an alpha. They need a leader who sees their hearts." As the sun climbed higher, Luca pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly for the first time in weeks, without distraction. The advantages of his ways had blinded him to the burdens, but now, confronting the pain in Miki's eyes and the echoes in his pack, he felt the first cracks in his resolve. Change loomed, a daunting path, but necessary. The gilded burden had grown too heavy. It was time to forge a new way, one that balanced tradition with tenderness. The stream continued its gentle flow, a reminder that even the strongest rivers bent to the land's contours. Luca's reflection had begun, but the confrontation with his failings was far from over. The pack's healing, and his own, depended on what came next. Chapter 4. The Breaking Point. The storm clouds gathered over the Silverridge Mountains like a brewing omen, dark and heavy with the promise of chaos. Alpha Luca Stormfang paced the length of his cliff-top den, his mind a whirlwind of unresolved thoughts from the past days. The reflections by the stream with Miki had cracked his armor, but complacency dies hard in an alpha bred for unyielding control. He had promised himself and her that he would make changes. Shorter patrols, more communal gatherings, time carved out for just the two of them. Yet, as the pack's demands piled up, those promises felt like whispers lost in the wind. A border skirmish with rogue shifters had pulled him away again, and Miki's plea for a shared evening hunt had been postponed. "Tomorrow," he had said, kissing her forehead distractedly. Now, as thunder rumbled in the distance, he wondered if tomorrow would ever come. Down in the valley, the Eclipse Pack braced for the incoming tempest. Omegas like Birdie hustled to secure the lodges, tying down tarps and herding pups indoors. The air crackled with electricity, both from the storm and the underlying tension that had been simmering since the whispers began. Luca descended the stone steps, his powerful legs carrying him swiftly to the central clearing. Ames met him there, his sandy blonde hair whipping in the rising wind. "Alpha, the scouts report the rogues are using the storm as cover. Hunter's team is holding the northern flank, but we need reinforcements." Luca nodded, his green eyes narrowing. "Gather Bruce and the warriors. I'll lead the charge myself." Duty called, as it always did, drowning out the nagging voice in his head that urged him to check on Miki first. She was in the healer's lodge, tending to an injured pup from the earlier drills, Ace's young nephew who had twisted an ankle during training. "She'll understand,"
Luca muttered, shifting into his massive wolf form, his dark fur blending with the gathering shadows. The battle erupted at the border like the storm itself, fierce, unrelenting. Lightning illuminated the clash of fangs and claws as Luca's axe drove back the rogues, a ragtag group of outcasts desperate for territory. Bruce fought like a demon, his grizzled wolf form tearing through enemies with brutal efficiency. Hunter darted through the fray, his lean agility turning the tide with precise strikes. Luca reveled in the adrenaline, the raw power of leadership surging through him. This was what he knew: victory through strength, tradition holding firm. By the time the rogues scattered, rain pounding the earth into mud, Luca felt a fleeting sense of triumph. The pack was safe, borders secure. But as he shifted back, bloodied but unbroken, a howl pierced the night. Not one of aggression, but of anguish. It came from the valley. Luca's heart seized, his wolf instinct screaming in alarm. "Miki," he breathed, breaking into a run. Ames and the others followed, their faces etched with worry. The storm raged around them, wind howling like a tormented spirit as they raced back to the compound. The healer's lodge was in disarray when they arrived. Herbs scattered across the floor, the hearth fire sputtering against the invading rain through a shattered window. Birdie knelt in the center, her red hair plastered to her face, cradling a limp form. "Alpha," she cried, her voice breaking. It was Miki, his fated mate, pale and unmoving, a deep gash across her shoulder seeping blood. The pup she had been healing huddled in the corner, wide-eyed and whimpering. "What happened?" he demanded, dropping to his knees beside her. His hands trembled as he brushed her auburn hair from her clammy forehead. Her breathing was shallow, her warm brown eyes closed in unconsciousness.
Birdie sobbed, her freckled face streaked with tears and rain. "Rogues, a splinter group broke through during the storm. They targeted the lodge, knew we were vulnerable here. Miki fought them off to protect the pup. She shifted, but there were too many. I arrived just in time with Ahmed, but she wouldn't let us help until the child was safe." Luca's world tilted. The direct consequences of his neglect slammed into him like a thunderbolt. He had pulled the strongest warriors to the border, leaving the heart of the pack, the healers, the Omegas, the young, underprotected. Miki, exhausted from days of overwork and emotional strain, had been left to defend alone. Her plea for more balance, for him to prioritize the pack's inner strength, echoed in his mind. "I should have been here," he growled, his voice raw with guilt. The mate bond pulsed with her pain, a searing reminder of how his complacency had endangered her. Ahmed entered, his silver-streaked beard dripping, carrying salves and bandages. The elder's thoughtful eyes met Luca's, filled with unspoken reproach. "She's strong, Alpha, but this wound, it's deep. Poisoned claws by the look. She'll need her own healing gifts, but she's too weak now." Luca gathered Miki into his arms, her body light and fragile against his chest. The storm outside mirrored the one within him. His complacency shattered, the gilded illusion of his rule crumbling. He had seen the signs, the whispers, the emotional toll, Miki's fading spark. But he had clung to tradition, believing it unbreakable. Now, holding his mate as her lifeblood stained his shirt, he witnessed the wreckage firsthand. "Forgive me," he whispered into her hair, carrying her toward their den. The pack watched in silence, their eyes a mix of sympathy and accusation. As he laid her on their furs, tending to her wound with Ahmed's guidance, Luca's resolve hardened. The breaking point had come, forcing him to confront the ruins of his neglect. Miki's survival hung in the balance, a stark testament to what he had overlooked.
Change was no longer a choice, it was survival. But as her fever rose and she murmured incoherently in her sleep, Luca wondered if he had realized too late. The night stretched on, the storm unrelenting, and the Alpha's vigil began. Chapter 5. Mirror of Regret. The rain had eased to a persistent drizzle by the time Luca settled Miki in their den, the stone walls echoing with the distant rumble of thunder. Ahmed worked methodically beside him, applying poultices to her wound and murmuring ancient incantations to draw out the rogue's poison. Miki's fever burned hot, her skin flushed and slick with sweat, but her breathing had steadied under the elder's care. "She'll pull through," he assured, his voice gravelly with age. "The mate bond gives her strength. But rest now, Alpha. She needs you whole when she wakes." Luca nodded numbly, but rest was a distant dream. As Ahmed departed, leaving salves and instructions, Luca sank onto the furs beside his mate. The den, once a sanctuary of shared warmth, now felt like a chamber of judgment. Flickering torchlight danced across the walls, casting long shadows that seemed to mock him.
He stared at Miki's pale face, her auburn lashes fluttering in fitful sleep, and the weight of his failures crashed over him like a tidal wave. This was no time for excuses or deflection. In this raw moment, alone with the woman he loved, Luca forced himself to confront the mirror of his past actions, the unyielding reflection of an Alpha who had prioritized power over heart. Guilt clawed at his chest, sharp and unrelenting. He traced his fingers lightly over her bandaged shoulder, remembering the first time they had met under the harvest moon 5 years ago. Miki, then a wandering healer from a disbanded pack, had stumbled into Eclipse territory during a hunt. Her spirit had captivated him instantly, fierce yet compassionate, a balm to his orphaned soul. The mate bond had snapped into place like destiny's chain, and their union had been celebrated with howls that shook the mountains. "I'll protect you always," he had vowed that night, sealing it with a kiss that promised eternity. But protection? Luca scoffed inwardly, the sound bitter in the quiet den. What had he protected? Not her heart? Not the pack's spirit? His mind replayed the litany of neglect, each memory a shard of glass embedding deeper. After his parents' death, he had armored himself in tradition, building walls of rigid patrols and endless drills to shield against vulnerability. "Weakness invites destruction," his father had once said. But Luca had twisted those words into a creed of isolation. He had expanded borders, amassed resources, forged alliances, all victories that glittered like fool's gold. Yet in doing so, he had overlooked the small fractures. Aim's quiet pleas for balance, Bruce's gruff admissions of family strain, Birdie's fiery complaints about overlooked omegas. And Miki, God's Miki! The guilt surged hot and choking. He had dismissed her exhaustion as mere healer's fatigue, her gentle suggestions for more intimate moments as distractions from duty. "The pack needs me," he had told her time and again, pulling away to attend councils or hunts. But the pack needed her too, her healing hands, her soothing presence, and he had left her to carry that burden alone. The rogue attack was the culmination, a direct echo of his complacency. If he had heeded the whispers, shortened the patrols, fortified the inner compound, if he had been there, shifting beside her in defense, the what-ifs tormented him, fueling a fear that gnawed at his core. Vulnerability. Luca rose, pacing the den like a caged wolf, his reflection caught in a polished silver shield hanging on the wall, a relic from his first victory. He stared into it,
seeing not the formidable Alpha with piercing green eyes and battle-hardened features, but a man haunted by regret. Vulnerability terrified him. It was the chink in the armor that had felled his parents. Opening up meant risking loss, exposing the raw underbelly where grief and doubt resided. What if showing weakness eroded my authority? What if the pack saw me not as unbreakable, but as fallible? And with Miki, what if admitting my failures drove her further away, shattering the bond I had already strained? Yet, as he grappled with that fear, a deeper truth emerged in the mirror's gleam. Vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was the bridge to strength. Miki had shown him that time and again, her open heart mending not just bodies, but souls.
By hiding behind tradition, he had built a reign of isolation, where loyalty masked resentment and love withered in neglect. The guilt twisted sharper, but it was a catalyst now, urging him toward honesty. He returned to her side, taking her hand in his. Her fingers twitched weakly, and a murmur escaped her lips. "Luca." "I'm here," he whispered, his voice cracking for the first time in years. Tears burned his eyes, unbidden and unfamiliar. "And I'm sorry for everything." In that raw confession, spoken to her unconscious form, Luca examined the depths of his actions. The fear of vulnerability loomed, but so did the promise of redemption. He would change, not just for the pack, but for her, for them. As the drizzle outside softened to silence, Luca held vigil, his regrets laid bare. The mirror had shown him the truth. Now it was time to shatter the old ways and rebuild. Miki stirred slightly, her fever breaking under the salves, and in that fragile hope, Luca found the courage to embrace what he had long feared. The night deepened, but for the first time, the shadows held not just regret, but the dawn of transformation. Chapter 6. Battling the Beast Within. Dawn crept over the Silverridge Mountains like a hesitant intruder, its pale light filtering through the den's narrow windows and casting a soft glow on Miki's sleeping form. Luca hadn't moved from her side all night, his body rigid with exhaustion and turmoil. The poultices Ahmed had applied worked their magic. Her fever had broken hours ago, and color returned to her cheeks. She stirred now, her warm brown eyes fluttering open to meet his green ones, filled with a mix of relief and lingering pain. "Luca," she whispered, her voice hoarse but steady. "The pup, is he safe?" He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Yes, thanks to you. The rogues are scattered, the borders reinforced." But the words felt inadequate, a shield against the storm raging inside him. Miki reached out, her hand finding his, and for a moment the mate bond hummed with quiet comfort. Yet as she squeezed his fingers, Luca felt the beast within stir, a primal resistance, the alpha wolf that had always equated control with survival. The day unfolded in a blur of pack duties, but Luca's internal battle consumed him. He stepped out into the valley, where the storm's aftermath left muddied paths and fallen branches, a mirror to his fractured resolve. Ames approached him, his blue eyes scanning Luca's face with brotherly concern. "She's recovering well, Alpha. The pack's spirits are lifting, birdies organizing a communal cleanup to rebuild unity." Luca grunted in acknowledgement, but his mind was elsewhere. Embracing emotional openness, the idea chafed like silver against skin. He had built his reign on control, unwavering commands, structured hierarchies that kept chaos at bay. To soften now, to admit vulnerabilities, felt like inviting the very destruction he had sworn to prevent. His parents' death flashed in his memory, a lax gathering turned ambush, rogues exploiting momentary weakness. "Control saves lives," he muttered to himself, clenching his fists as he helped Bruce clear debris from the training grounds.
Bruce, ever the loyal warrior, clapped him on the back with a scarred hand. "Good to see you out here, Alpha. After last night, we could use your strength." But even as Luca heaved a massive log aside, his wolf growled inwardly. Change meant risk. Opening up could erode his authority, make the pack question his fitness. What if emotional displays led to hesitation in battle? What if Miki saw his fears and lost respect for him? The resistance built, a fortress of habit and fear, urging him to retreat to the familiar rigidity. By midday, Luca sought solitude in the forest, shifting to his wolf form to run off the tension. Paws pounded the earth, wind whipping through his dark fur as he navigated the familiar trails. But even here the struggle intensified. The beast within reveled in the solitude, the raw power of instinct over emotion. "This is strength," it seemed to whisper, urging him to maintain the status quo. Patrols, drills, conquest, these were the Alpha's domain, not heartfelt confessions or shared vulnerabilities. Yet flashes of Miki's wounded body intruded, her plea for connection echoing like a howl in the wilderness. Embracing openness meant dismantling the walls he had erected after his parents' loss, exposing the grief-stricken pup beneath the Alpha's hide. He shifted back near the stream where he had confronted Miki days before, collapsing onto the mossy rock. Sweat beaded on his brow, his muscular frame tense with conflict. "Damn it," he growled, punching the ground. Guilt warred with fear. He wanted to change, for her, for the pack, but the pull of control was visceral. What if opening up made him weak like his father? The pack thrived under his rule. Altering it could unravel everything. Hunter interrupted his solitude, the scout's lean form emerging from the trees with urgent news. "Alpha, scouts report rogue remnants regrouping. We need to plan." Luca rose, masking his turmoil with a nod. "Gather the council." But as they returned to the compound, the internal tug-of-war escalated. In the grand hall, surrounded by Ames, Bruce, Ahmed, and others, Luca outlined a defensive strategy. More patrols, heightened drills. His voice boomed with authority, the beast within purring at the familiarity. Yet when Birdie spoke up from the sidelines, her fiery red hair tied back and her voice bold, the cracks showed. "Alpha, what about the inner pack? Last night's attack hit home because we were spread thin. Maybe fewer borders, more bonds." The suggestion ignited his resistance. "Bonds don't stop claws," he snapped, regretting the sharpness instantly. The room fell silent, eyes averting. Ames shot him a pointed look, and Luca felt the fear surge, fear that change would expose him as inadequate. He adjourned the meeting abruptly, retreating to the den where Miki now sat up, sipping broth. She set the bowl aside as he entered, her eyes searching his. "You look like you're fighting a war in there," she said softly, patting the furs beside her. Luca sat, the weight of his struggle pressing down. "I am," he admitted, the words tumbling out in a rush of raw honesty. "I want to change, Miki, for you, for us. But the beast, it fights me. Control is all I've known. Opening up feels like surrender, like I'll lose everything." She took his hand, her touch a lifeline. "Surrender isn't loss, Luca. It's trust. The pack needs your heart as much as your strength, and so do I." Tears pricked his eyes again, the vulnerability terrifying yet liberating. As evening fell, Luca wrestled on, torn between the Alpha's iron grip and the pull toward emotional openness. He stepped outside, addressing a small gathering of pack members around the fire. "We've won battles," he began, his voice steady but laced with uncharacteristic hesitation. "But I've neglected the wars within. From now on, we balance strength with soul." The words cost him, the beast roaring in protest, but the pack's nods and Miki's proud smile from the den's doorway fueled his resolve. The battle within raged on, resistance clashing with the need for change. But Luca knew surrender to openness was the true path to victory. As stars emerged, he returned to Miki, embracing her gently, the first step in taming the beast. The night held promise, but the struggle was far from over. Chapter 7. Severing Old Chains. The morning sun broke through the lingering clouds over the Silverridge Mountains, bathing the Eclipse Pack's valley in a warm, hopeful light. Alpha Luca Stormfang stood at the edge of the training grounds, his broad frame less rigid than usual, his green eyes scanning the pack with a new intensity, not of command, but of connection. Miki's recovery had steadied, her wound healing under her own gentle magic, and her words from the previous night echoed in his mind. "Surrender isn't loss, Luca. It's trust. The pack needs your heart as much as your strength. And so do I." The beast within still growled, resisting change, but Luca was done letting it rule. Today he would take decisive steps to dismantle the neglectful habits that had fractured his pack and strained his bond with his fated mate. The old chains of rigid control had to be severed, starting now. He began with small, deliberate acts. Instead of heading straight to the War Council, as was his custom, Luca joined the Omegas at the communal fire pit, where breakfast preparations were underway. Birdie, her red hair catching the sunlight, looked up in surprise as he crouched beside her, helping to skewer venison for the grill. "Alpha?" she asked, her freckled face wary but curious. "No drills this morning, Birdie," Luca said, his voice softer than the pack was used to. "I'm here to listen. You said the Omegas feel unseen. Tell me more." The words felt foreign, an admission of fault that made his wolf bristle, but he pushed through. Birdie hesitated, then spoke of mates stretched thin by patrols, pups craving playtime over training, and the lack of communal gatherings that once knit the pack together. Others joined in, their voices tentative at first, then bolder. Luca nodded, absorbing their words, his usual instinct to deflect replaced by accountability. Next, he sought out Ace, the young scout whose nephew had been caught in the rogue attack. He found him repairing a fence near the Eastern Lodge, his lanky frame tense with focus. "Ace," Luca called, approaching with a purposeful stride. "Your sister's pup. How is he?" Ace straightened, surprise flickering in his wide eyes. "He's better, Alpha. Miki's herbs helped, but he's shaken. Keeps asking for me, but I'm always out scouting."
Luca clapped a hand on his shoulder, meeting his gaze. "Take the day with him. Family comes first today. I've been wrong to let duty drown that." Ace's jaw dropped, but gratitude softened his features. It was a small act, but it cut through one of Luca's oldest habits, prioritizing tasks over bonds. By midday, Luca gathered the council in the grand hall, but this time the agenda was different. Ames, Bruce, Hunter, and Elder Ahmed sat around the oak table, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "We've thrived on discipline," Luca began, his voice steady but laced with humility. "But I've let it blind me. I've neglected the heart of this pack, your hearts and Miki's. No more endless patrols. We'll rotate duties to give time for families, for stories, for us." He outlined changes: shorter shifts, a revived story circle for pups, and a weekly communal hunt led by him and Miki together. The council murmured approval, though Bruce's gruff nod held a trace of doubt. Change was uncharted territory, and Luca felt the weight of proving it. The most daunting step came that evening. Luca found Miki in the healer's lodge, organizing her herb stores. Her auburn hair was tied back, her movements graceful but guarded. He took a deep breath, severing the chain of avoidance that had kept them distant. "Miki," he said, stepping close, "I've been a fool. I let control become my cage, and it hurt you. I'm changing, starting with us. Will you hunt with me tonight? Just us, under the stars?" Her brown eyes widened, searching his face for sincerity. Slowly, she nodded, a tentative smile breaking through. "I'd like that, Luca. Truly." As dusk fell, they shifted together, their wolves bounding into the forest. Luca's dark fur gleamed beside Miki's sleek, reddish coat, their mate bond pulsing with renewed warmth. They chased a deer through the pines, not for strategy, but for joy, their howls intertwining in a melody of reconnection. Back in the den, breathless and laughing, Luca pulled her close in human form, kissing her deeply. "I'm accountable for my neglect. I won't let it chain us again." The pack noticed the shift. Around the evening fire, stories flowed freely, led by Ahmed's tales of ancient alphas who ruled with heart. Birdie laughed with her mate, returned from patrol early. Ace played with his nephew, their giggles echoing. Luca's small acts, listening, prioritizing, reconnecting, were cutting through years of rigid habit. But the beast within still whispered doubts, warning that openness could falter under pressure. As Miki curled against him that night, her warmth a promise of healing, Luca vowed to keep severing those chains. The pack's heart was stirring, and he would not let it still again. The moon rose, illuminating a path of change, fragile but growing stronger with each step. Chapter 8. Strength in Openness. The twilight air hung heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth as the Eclipse Pack gathered around the communal fire pit, the first true gathering Luca had called in months. The flames crackled, casting a warm glow across the faces of his pack. Warriors, omegas, pups, all drawn together under the emerging stars of the Silverridge Mountains.
Alpha Luca Stormfang stood at the circle's edge, his broad frame no longer a tower of unyielding command, but a beacon of something new, something raw. His green eyes, usually sharp with authority, softened as they met Miki's across the fire. Her auburn hair glowed like embers, her warm brown eyes reflecting a cautious hope after their shared hunt the previous night. The mate bond between them pulsed, fragile but rekindling, yet Luca's heart thundered with the weight of what he was about to do. To show vulnerability, to bare his soul to the pack, was a leap into uncharted territory, a risk that made his wolf snarl with unease. He stepped into the firelight, the pack's chatter fading to a reverent hush. Luca's hands trembled slightly, a betrayal of the alpha facade he had worn like armor for years. "Eclipse Pack," he began, his voice steady but thick with emotion. "I've led you with strength, with tradition, believing it was enough. But I was wrong." The words hung heavy, a confession that silenced even the wind. Birdie, her red hair tied back, leaned forward, her freckled face a mix of shock and curiosity. Ames, ever loyal, watched with quiet pride, while Bruce's grizzled features softened, his skepticism giving way to intrigue. "I've neglected you,"
Luca continued, his gaze sweeping the circle, locking eyes with those he had overlooked. I saw Miki's pain, your weariness, and dismissed it as weakness. That stops now. His voice cracked, and he let it. Let the rawness show. Let the pack see the man beneath the alpha. I'm listening. Speak your truths. Help me rebuild what I've broken. The silence stretched, taut as a bowstring, until Birdie rose, her fiery spirit blazing in her eyes. Alpha, we've admired your strength, but we've felt invisible. Omegas like me, we raise pups, mend gear, keep the pack alive, but our voices are drowned out by war cries. My mate barely knows our daughter because of endless patrols. We need you to see us, not just command us. Her words cut deep, each one a mirror to Luca's failures, but he held her gaze, nodding. Ace stood next, his lanky frame trembling with emotion. My nephew almost died in that rogue attack. I wasn't there because I was scouting, always scouting. I want to be his brother, not just a soldier. His voice broke, and Luca felt his own throat tighten, the weight of Ace's pain echoing Miki's near loss. One by one, overlooked voices rose. Leela, an Omega with gentle hands, spoke of sleepless nights worrying for her mate on patrol. Elder Ahmed, his silver-streaked beard glinting, shared tales of past alphas who balanced might with mercy, urging Luca to embrace both. Even Bruce, the stoic warrior, admitted gruffly, "My pups think I'm a stranger. I'd kill for you, Alpha, but I want to live for them, too." Luca listened, his heart pounding as trust began to weave through the circle. Each confession revealed hidden strengths: Birdie's fierce loyalty, Ace's protective heart, Leela's quiet resilience. He saw now what Miki had always known. The pack's true power lay not in claws, but in connection. His vulnerability, terrifying as it was forging a new bond, stronger than any battle formation. He turned to Miki, who had joined the circle, her presence a quiet anchor. "And you, my mate," he said, voice low but carrying to every ear. "I've failed you most. I let duty blind me to your heart. I'm here now, open, if you'll have me." Tears glistened in her eyes, and she stepped forward, taking his hand. The mate bond flared, warm and alive, as she whispered, "I see you, Luca. We all do." The pack erupted in soft howls, a chorus of unity that drowned out his wolf's lingering doubts. Luca knelt, a gesture of humility, and invited the pups to share stories. They clambered forward, their laughter mingling with Ahmed's tales, while warriors and Omegas alike joined in. Hidden strengths emerged: Hunter's knack for storytelling, Leela's skill in calming anxious pups. Luca felt the pack's heart beating stronger, trust blooming where neglect had once festered. As the fire died to embers, Luca and Miki lingered, her head resting against his shoulder. "This is strength," she murmured, and he nodded, the weight of his old ways lifting. The night sky stretched vast above, a canvas of possibility. Vulnerability had not weakened him, it had revealed the pack's true power. The chains of neglect were breaking, and Luca's openness was forging a new legacy, one howl at a time. Chapter 9. Foundations of Renewal. The dawn broke over the Silverridge Mountains with a clarity that mirrored the shift within the Eclipse Pack. The valley hummed with a tentative energy, as if the earth itself sensed the change Luca Stormfang was determined to forge. The Alpha stood in the central clearing,
his muscular frame no longer a symbol of rigid control, but a pillar of renewed purpose. His green eyes scanned the waking pack, Omegas tending to morning chores, warriors stretching for lighter drills, pups scampering with newfound freedom. Miki stood beside him, her auburn hair catching the sunlight, her warm brown eyes bright with pride. The mate bond between them thrummed stronger, a lifeline anchoring Luca as he prepared to lay the foundations for a transformed pack dynamic. The beast within still whispered doubts, but last night's vulnerability had silenced its roar. Today, he would initiate practices focused on connection, growth, and support. Luca began with a gesture both bold and simple. He called the pack to the communal fire pit, not for a council or battle plan, but for a shared breakfast, an event he had neglected for years. The scent of roasted hare and fresh bread filled the air as he helped Birdie and Leela serve, his hands clumsy but earnest. "No ranks today," he declared, his voice carrying a warmth that made heads turn. "We eat as one." The pack hesitated, then joined, warriors like Bruce sitting cross-legged beside Omegas, pups giggling as they stole extra rolls. Birdie, her freckled face glowing, whispered to Miki, "He's really trying." Luca caught the words, his heart swelling with resolve. The first new practice was a communal council, open to all voices. In the grand hall, Luca stood at the head of the oak table, but instead of issuing orders, he invited input.
"We've been a pack of strength," he said, meeting eyes with Ames, Hunter, and Elder Ahmed. "Now we'll be a pack of heart. Speak, what do we need?" Leela suggested a weekly story circle to nurture the pup's spirits, her soft voice gaining confidence. Ace proposed shorter scout shifts to balance family time, his lanky frame straighter with purpose. Even Bruce, his grizzled features softening, offered to mentor pups in play, not just combat. Luca nodded, writing each idea on a slate, a tangible commitment to change. The council stretched into the afternoon, voices once overlooked, now shaping the pack's future. Growth was the next pillar. Luca restructured training, blending discipline with connection. In the clearing, he paired warriors with Omegas for drills, fostering mutual respect. Birdie, quick and fiery, sparred alongside Hunter, her agility surprising the scout. "Not bad for an Omega," Hunter grinned, earning a playful shove. Luca watched, seeing trust take root. He joined a group of pups, teaching them to track not just for strategy, but for joy, their laughter echoing as they chased scents through the grass. Miki, assisting with herbal lessons nearby, caught his eye, her smile a silent affirmation. Support came through a new role, pack listeners. Luca appointed Miki and Ahmed to lead a group trained to hear grievances and joys alike, ensuring no voice went unheard. Miki, her healer's heart, perfect for the task, began meeting with Omegas like Leela, whose quiet strength shone in these intimate talks. "They're opening up," Miki told Luca that evening, her voice thick with emotion. "They feel seen." Luca pulled her close, the mate bond a warm pulse. "Because of you," he murmured, kissing her forehead, a gesture of partnership rather than dominance. By dusk, the pack gathered for the first story circle in years, led by Ahmed's resonant tales of ancient wolves who thrived through unity. Luca sat among them, Miki's hand in his, listening as pups shared wild imaginings and warriors recounted light-hearted memories. The firelight danced across faces, revealing a pack dynamic transforming, less rigid, more woven. Luca felt the foundations solidifying, each practice a brick in a new legacy. The beast within was quieter now, its resistance fading as connection proved stronger than control. As the stars emerged, Luca addressed the pack, his voice raw but steady. "We're rebuilding, together. Your voices, your hearts, they're our strength." The pack howled in response, a unified chorus that shook the valley. Miki leaned against him, her warmth a promise of renewal. The groundwork was laid, fragile but firm, and Luca knew the path ahead would test these foundations. But for now, under the vast night sky, the Eclipse Pack was whole, bound by trust and ready to grow. Chapter 10. Waves of Change. The Silverridge Mountains glowed under a late afternoon sun, the golden light weaving through the pines and bathing the Eclipse Pack's valley in a warmth that mirrored the shift in its spirit. Alpha Luca Stormfang stood at the heart of the compound, his broad frame relaxed, his green eyes alight with a quiet pride he hadn't felt in years. The air hummed with activity, laughter from pups playing freely, the rhythmic clatter of omegas and warriors working side by side to repair storm-damaged lodges, the soft murmur of conversations unburdened by rigid hierarchies. Miki moved among them, her auburn hair loose and flowing, her warm brown eyes sparkling as she distributed healing salves. The mate bond between them pulsed strong, a steady current of trust rebuilt through Luca's recent changes. His shift toward openness and connection was sending tangible waves through the pack, rippling through relationships and fostering a well-being that empowered individuals to thrive. Luca's new practices were taking root. The communal breakfasts, now a daily ritual, had transformed the fire pit into a hub of unity. This morning, Bruce, the grizzled warrior, had sat beside Lila, the soft-spoken Omega, sharing a story of his first hunt that had her laughing until tears shone in her eyes. Luca joined them, passing out bread with a smile, noting how Bruce's usually stern features softened, his connection to the pack deepening beyond his warrior role. Birdie, her red hair tied back, orchestrated the meal with newfound confidence, her fiery spirit no longer stifled but celebrated. "Alpha, you've got a knack for grilling," she teased, tossing him a skewer. Luca caught it, grinning, the ease of the moment a stark contrast to the rigid counsels of old. Relationships mended like wounds under Miki's care. Luca watched as Ace, the lanky scout, played with his nephew in the clearing, their laughter a melody of reconnection. The shorter scout shifts Luca had implemented allowed Ace to be a brother again, his wide eyes bright with joy rather than exhaustion. "Thank you, Alpha. I'm not just a scout now, I'm family." Luca clapped his shoulder, the gesture heavy with accountability. These small victories, time reclaimed, bonds restored, were the ripples of his change, spreading outward. The pack's well-being flourished in subtler ways. The weekly story circles led by Elder Ahmed had become a beacon of emotional health. Last night, under a crescent moon, Ahmed's silver-streaked beard had gleamed as he spun tales of ancient wolves, while pups and adults alike shared their own stories. Hunter, the agile scout, surprised everyone with the poetic recounting of a starlit run, his words weaving a spell that drew soft howls of appreciation. Lila, emboldened by the pack listeners' support, spoke of her fears for her mate's safety, her vulnerability met with nods and gentle touches. Luca listened, his heart swelling as he saw the pack spirit knit together, each voice a thread in a stronger tapestry. Miki's role as a pack listener amplified these changes. She met with omegas and warriors alike, her healer's empathy drawing out buried hopes and hurts. After one session, she found Luca by the stream, her face radiant but tear-streaked. "They're thriving, Luca," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Lila's planning a pup playgroup, and Bruce, he's teaching his daughter to wrestle.
Your changes. They're giving them wings." Luca pulled her into his arms, the mate bond a warm tide of love and pride. "It's us, Miki," he murmured, kissing her deeply.
"You showed me the way." The training grounds reflected this empowerment. Luca had replaced relentless drills with sessions that blended skill and camaraderie. Today, he watched Birdie spar with Hunter, her agility matching his speed, their laughter echoing as they tumbled in the grass. Warriors mentored pups, not just in combat, but in tracking for fun, their games fostering confidence. Luca joined, shifting to his wolf form to lead a playful chase, his dark fur a blur beside the pup's smaller frames. The pack's energy was electric, each member thriving as individual strengths shone. As evening fell, Luca addressed the pack by the fire, his voice steady but warm. "We're stronger now, not just in claws, but in hearts. Your growth, your bonds, they're our future." The pack howled, a unified chorus that shook the valley. Miki stood beside him, her hand in his, her smile a beacon. The waves of change had begun to reshape the Eclipse Pack, empowering each wolf to thrive. Under the starlit sky, Luca felt the ripples becoming a tide, carrying them toward a future where connection was their greatest strength. Chapter 11. Unleashed Potential. The late afternoon sun draped the Silverridge Mountains in a golden veil, its warmth seeping into the Eclipse Pack's valley and igniting a vibrant energy that pulsed through every lodge and clearing. Alpha Luca Stormfang stood on the clifftop overlooking the compound, his broad frame relaxed, his green eyes gleaming with a quiet awe. The pack below thrived in ways he hadn't dared to imagine months ago. Pups tumbled in playful chases, their laughter mingling with the rhythmic hammerings of Omegas and warriors rebuilding a communal hall. Miki moved among them, her auburn hair a cascade of firelight, her warm brown eyes radiant as she guided a group of pups in mixing herbal poultices. The mate bond between them thrummed with a steady, vibrant warmth, a testament to the trust they had rebuilt. Luca's evolving role as an alpha who balanced strength with heart unleashed a potential in his pack that now rippled outward, inspiring broader changes in their community. The pack members flourished under Luca's new leadership, their individual strengths blooming like wildflowers after a long winter. Birdie, once a fiery voice stifled by neglect, had taken charge of the communal hall project, her red hair a beacon as she directed warriors and Omegas alike with a confidence that rivaled any beta. "Move that beam to the left, Hunter," she called, her freckled face alight with purpose. Hunter, the lean scout, grinned and complied, his usual sly humor replaced with genuine respect. "You're tougher than Bruce in a bad mood," he teased, earning a playful swat. Luca watched, his heart swelling at Birdie's transformation from an overlooked Omega to a leader in her own right. Ace, the lanky scout, thrived too, his wide eyes no longer shadowed by exhaustion. The shorter shifts Luca had mandated allowed him to mentor his nephew, who now trailed him like a shadow, learning to track with a pup's eager curiosity. During a break, Ace knelt beside the boy, showing him how to read paw prints in the mud. "See that? A fox, not a wolf," Ace said, his voice patient and proud. The pup beamed, and Luca, passing by, clapped Ace's shoulder. "You're building more than skills. You're building him up." Ace's grateful nod spoke volumes, a ripple of Luca's changes strengthening family bonds.
The pack's communal practices, now a cornerstone of their dynamic, fueled this flourishing. The weekly story circles had grown into vibrant gatherings where every voice mattered. Last night, Elder Ahmed had woven a tale of unity, his silver-streaked beard glinting as he spoke, while Leela, the soft-spoken Omega, shared a poem about hope that hushed the crowd.
Even Bruce, the grizzled warrior, had surprised everyone by teaching the pups a wrestling move that doubled as a dance, his daughter giggling on his shoulders. Luca joined these circles, no longer a distant alpha, but a participant, his laughter mingling with theirs, his presence a bridge between strength and connection. These changes inspired broader community shifts. Neighboring packs, hearing of the Eclipse Pack's renewed spirit, sent emissaries to learn from them. A delegation from the Moonshadow Pack arrived that morning, their beta marveling at the communal hall's progress and the pack's unity. "Your alpha listens," the beta said to Ames, who stood beside Luca. "That's rare." Ames grinned, his blue eyes proud. "He's evolving, and so are we." Luca, overhearing, felt his role shift further. Not just a leader, but a catalyst for change beyond his borders. Miki's work as a pack listener amplified this potential. She met daily with pack members, her healer's empathy drawing out dreams and fears. After one session, she found Luca by the training grounds, her face alight with excitement. "Leela's starting a healing circle for Omegas, and Hunter's teaching navigation to the pups. They're soaring, Luca, because you gave them space to." Luca pulled her close, the mate bond a warm tide. "We gave them space," he corrected, kissing her deeply, her lavender scent grounding him. As evening fell, Luca addressed the pack by the fire, his voice steady but rich with emotion. "You've shown me what strength truly is. Your hearts, your voices, your growth. We're not just a pack, we're a family, and you're its power." The pack howled, a united chorus that echoed across the mountains. Miki stood beside him, her hand in his, her smile a beacon of their shared journey. The Eclipse Pack's unleashed potential was reshaping their world, and Luca's evolving role, alpha, partner, listener, was its heart. Under the starlit sky, the ripples of change became a wave, carrying them toward a future where every wolf thrived. Chapter 12. Legacy of the Awakened. The full moon hung like a silver crown over the Silverridge Mountains, bathing the Eclipse Pack's valley in a radiant glow that seemed to celebrate their transformation. Alpha Luca Stormfang stood at the heart of the newly completed communal hall, its sturdy timber beams a testament to the pack's unified effort. The air buzzed with warmth, laughter, clinking mugs, the scent of roasted elk mingling with pine. Miki stood beside him, her auburn hair shimmering, her warm brown eyes alight with love and pride. The mate bond thrummed between them, a vibrant pulse of trust forged through trials. Luca's broad frame, once a symbol of rigid control, now radiated a conscious strength, his green eyes reflecting a pack reborn. Tonight, he would commit to sustained leadership, implementing strategies to ensure a lasting legacy of growth and belonging.
The hall was alive with the pack's newfound spirit. Birdie, her red hair braided with wildflowers, danced with her mate, their daughter giggling between them. Ace, no longer just a scout but a mentor, taught pups to carve wooden totems, his lanky frame relaxed with purpose. Bruce, the grizzled warrior, shared a mug with Leela, their laughter a bridge between warrior and Omega. Elder Ahmed presided over the feast, his silver-streaked beard catching the firelight as he blessed the gathering. Luca watched, his heart swelling at the tangible legacy of his changes. Relationships healed, individuals thriving, a pack woven into a true family. Luca's commitment to conscious leadership began with permanence. He had formalized the communal councils, ensuring every voice, Omega, warrior, pup, shaped the pack's path. Tonight, he unveiled a carved stone tablet in the hall, etched with their new creed. Strength in unity, power in heart. This is our promise, he declared, his voice resonant, carrying to every corner. We lead together, grow together, belong together. The pack cheered, their howls a symphony of unity, and Luca felt the weight of his old ways dissolve, replaced by a resolve to sustain this awakening. To maintain progress, Luca introduced enduring strategies. He established a rotating council of listeners, led by Miki and Ahmed, to keep the pack's pulse alive. Miki, her healer's grace now a cornerstone of leadership, trained Omegas like Leela to guide these sessions, ensuring emotional well-being. Luca also balanced training with connection, scheduling communal hunts and story circles alongside lighter drills. Hunter, his poetic soul shining, led a navigation workshop for pups, while Bruce taught wrestling games that doubled as bonding. These practices, woven into the pack's rhythm, ensured growth wasn't a fleeting spark, but a steady flame. The broader community felt the impact. Neighboring packs, inspired by the Eclipse Pack's unity, sent envoys to adopt their practices. The Moon Shadow Pack had begun their own story circles, and whispers of alliance talks grew. Luca, once a solitary alpha, now welcomed these exchanges, his evolving role a beacon for change. "We're not just a pack," he told Ames, his loyal beta, as they surveyed the hall. Ames grinned, his blue eyes bright. "You woke us up, brother." As the feast wound down, Luca took Miki's hand, leading her to the hall's center. "You have been my heart," he said, loud enough for all to hear, his voice thick with emotion. "This legacy, our legacy, is yours too." Miki's eyes glistened, and she kissed him, the mate bond a radiant tide. The pack howled, their voices a chorus of belonging that shook the mountains. Under the moon's watchful gaze, Luca addressed the pack once last. "This is our awakened legacy, growth, trust, family. We'll carry it forward, together." The pack's response was a thunderous howl, a vow to sustain their transformation. Luca felt the valley pulse with life, a lasting impact etched in every heart. Thank you for journeying with Luca, Miki, and the Eclipse Pack. If this tale of transformation and love resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe to support Elara Voss's storytelling. Your encouragement fuels more stories of heart and strength. Join the pack and keep the legacy alive.